Right, so good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Ma, and I'm delighted to present this work today with Chris Grondin. I'm an Asian woman wearing no glasses today, and I'm wearing a navy blue long sleeved dress.
Hello, my name is Chris Grondin, and I'm a Caucasian man wearing rectangular black glasses and a blue and white striped dress shirts.
This work was made possible through financial support from an NIH-supported research stipend and multiple grants from the University of Michigan Office of Medical School Education. Although I wish we had plenty of third-party interest in our work to warrant a disclosure, we have no conflicts of interest to share at this time. To start, please join me in imagining a scenario. You're starting medical school, and almost all of the lectures are pre-recorded. You spend several hours each day watching lectures at home, perhaps on a laptop like this. The content is new to you, and some concepts are hard to grasp. Today, the presenter is teaching you about pain management, but you're confused. What did they say was the next step after Tylenol? You look towards the closed captions, but they also don't make sense. Let's read the captions together. As for osteoarthritis patients who only tried Tylenol, but it's no longer working, but that's when inserts come into play as well, because inserts are very useful. Inserts. I thought we were talking about medications. So you rewind 2, 3, 4 more times and finally figure out what the speaker meant to say and that the captions had an error. NSAIDs, or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, was mistranscribed as inserts. Finally, I got it, but NSAIDs are so different from inserts, and it's important to note that NSAIDs are a backup when Tylenol isn't working for these patients. So having to decipher all of this got me wondering, do errors in transcripts matter? And how often are these errors even occurring? Is there some way we can get these errors corrected? And why are these errors happening in the first place? In an attempt to answer these questions, our investigation began.
To help elucidate the importance of closed captions in medical education, we use transcripts as a proxy, as our captions are generated directly from transcripts. We found that medical schools increasingly depend on pre-recorded lectures to deliver didactic material. Comprehension by hearing increases when transcripts are provided. Erroneous transcripts may jeopardize equity in education for those who depend on accommodation, for example, deaf, hard of hearing, or have dyslexia. Medical students are increasingly disclosing disabilities, with 4.6% from 2016 to 2019. Of these, 1.2 to 1.8% report being deaf or hard of hearing. The actual number of students with disabilities is likely higher, secondary to underreporting for various reasons. We next sought to clarify the current state of transcript generation. Our medical school utilizes a third-party company to generate transcripts in 2 steps. Automated speech recognition provides an initial transcript that is then reviewed by professional transcribers. This dual effort is made to achieve a target transcript accuracy of at least 99%, which is the industry standard for transcript accuracy. We also reached out to the other 34 Midwestern allopathic medical schools to assess their transcription practices. 8 of the 34 responded to our inquiry. 6 of those 8 provided transcripts to their students. Of the other 2, one does not automatically provide transcripts, but has protocols in place to provide them if accommodation is requested, and the other rarely records lectures and does not have a consistent protocol for providing transcripts. Of the 6 that provided transcripts, all utilize only automated speech recognition to provide transcripts. Given that the other medical schools that responded use only automated speech recognition, and our school essentially uses it as a first pass, we began to wonder, how accurate are automated speech recognition tools? Automated speech recognition has made significant advancements in the last decade. Tools are compared to each other using something called the word error rate, which is the number of substitutions, deletions, and insertions over the total number of words. This also excludes punctuation. Almost 10 years ago, Microsoft claimed a significant milestone in reaching parity with human transcriptions. In that article, they cite their word error rate at 5.9%. Human transcription of conversational speech is often cited at approximately 4%, though measurements may vary depending on the data source and conditions. With ChatGPT, released in late 2022, and the subsequent AI explosion, automated speech recognition tools have improved further. While the automated speech recognition system that our school's vendor uses is proprietary, there are several excellent open source options that we can use as examples, such as OpenAI's Whisper and Facebook's Wave 2 Vec. Whisper is cited to have a word error rate of 2.7% with LibreSpeech, which is an audiobook dataset, and 9% with Common Voice, which is crowdsourced sample sentences from volunteers across the internet. Wave 2 Vec is cited to have an error rate of 1.8% with LibreSpeech and 16% with Common Voice. Of note, these data come from Whisper in 2024. To analyze how accurate the transcriptions were, we broadly placed preclinical medical student lectures into 2 categories: basic sciences, which included biochemistry, microbiology, genetics, and clinical sciences, which included, for example, pathology, physiology, and the diagnosis and treatment of diseases. A convenient sample of the first available lecture blocks in the curriculum yielded 82 basic science and 112 clinical science lectures. To get a manageable amount for analysis, we randomly selected 36 lectures. This led to 19 basic science and 17 clinical science lectures being analyzed for errors. Of note, only medically meaningful errors were tabulated, which we defined as words that would substantially change the meaning of lecture content. Errors of articles, coordinating conjunctions, pronouns, and punctuation were all ignored. To assess how medical students perceived transcription errors, all 170 medical students in the class of 2025 were invited to take a survey after their first year of medical school. 85 students opted to participate, and of these, 46 provided additional comments that were used in qualitative analysis.
Zooming in, our audit revealed errors of insertion, like when the word risk was included, even though the lecturer never mentioned risk. There were also omissions, like when the word no, which is an important negative qualifier, was not included in the transcript. There were times when medical terms were mistaken for non-medical terms. So when the lecturer said stabilization, the transcript was incorrectly including subsidization. And perhaps most concerning were times when medical terms were mistaken for other medical terms. Like in this example, when pancreatitis, or inflammation of the pancreas, was transcribed instead of what the lecturer actually said, which is pericarditis, and that's inflammation of a totally different organ, the heart. And zooming back out, let's compare the rate of transcript errors in basic science lectures versus clinical science lectures. The average percent error for basic science lecture was 0.4%. That meant one lecture exceeded the 1% error limit set by industry gold standards. The average percent error per clinical science lecture was also less than 1%, but significantly higher than the average percent error per basic science lecture. And this meant 6 lectures within the clinical science grouping had error rates that exceeded the 1%. In other words, 35% of the clinical science lectures that we audited failed to meet industry standards for transcription accuracy, compared to the 5% in the basic science lectures. Although our audit demonstrated that some transcripts were notable for errors, it was unclear whether students were impacted by these errors. Therefore, we surveyed 85 students about their transcript use and perception of errors. 94% of participants said they used transcripts when consuming lectures. 96% of those who used transcripts said they noticed errors as they were watching. The most common attitude towards these transcript errors was frustration at 68%. Some students also reported anger, anxiety, and sadness. And a little less than half of the participants reported indifference. But beyond negative feelings towards transcripts, we were also interested in the potential implications that transcript errors had on learning. Since it would be nearly impossible to correlate transcript error rates with test score outcomes, we used student perceptions as a proxy. And ultimately, 58% of students agreed with the statement, errors in transcripts negatively impact my learning. In our inductive open coding of the comments from 46 participants, there were 2 themes and 7 codes identified. The first theme was potential contributors to transcript errors. 13 of those who provided comments noted that errors seemed to correspond with poor audio quality in some lectures. 3 participants felt that errors were primarily limited to specialized medical jargon, which may explain the difference in error rates that you may recall from before, where there was 5% of lectures from basic science that did not meet industry standards, whereas there was 35% of clinical science lectures that didn't meet industry standards. 2 students also reported that they felt errors occurred at random. The second theme was with regards to the impact of these errors. 20 participants noted that inaccuracies negatively impacted their comprehension of lecture material. And 10 participants were concerned about accessibility in the setting of these errors. 6 mentioned strongly relying on transcripts to be accurate, and 4 found some of these inaccuracies to be offensive.
Our study had several big picture implications. Our work suggests that most students use transcripts, are dissatisfied with the prevalence of errors, and believe they negatively impact their learning. A third of clinical science lectures audited did not meet industry standards for transcript accuracy. Clinical science lectures may have disproportionately not met these standards given increased medical terminology, which our transcription vendor does not claim expertise with. Transcript error rates are underreported given our strict definition of errors, counting only medically meaningful errors, and are likely to be even higher at schools that rely on only automated speech recognition and not the two-step automated speech recognition and human transcriber review that our vendor utilized. While we do not have a direct link between errors and performance, numerous studies have demonstrated the detrimental effects of confusion on performance. These findings are especially concerning for students who are deaf, hard of hearing, or have a learning disability, and negatively impacts equity. Medical schools should consider proactively optimizing transcripts instead of reacting to accommodation requests, given our findings highlight the generalized impact of transcription errors on students, in addition to the underreporting disabilities, and not all students ask for accommodation. Our study has several strengths. The transcripts we analyzed for errors used automated speech recognition and a second step of review by a human transcriber. This should be more accurate than automated speech recognition alone, which was used by the other allopathic medical schools that responded to our query. We had a rigid definition of medically meaningful errors. Transcription accuracy ordinarily would include errors of articles, coordinating conjunctions, pronouns, and sometimes even punctuation. Lectures across two broad content areas were analyzed, increasing the generalizability of our findings. Our study also has several weaknesses. It is unclear what, if any, impact negative student perspectives have on actual hard learning outcomes. It is also unclear if there is a practical difference between 99 and, say, 98% transcription accuracy. Our study was also at a single center, single cohort, where disability status was not assessed.
There are several countermeasures that we've thought of to address these transcript errors, and this can be divided into two groups, downstream and upstream. Let's start with downstream measures first. In 2022 to 2023, we asked students to help crowdsource errors and corrections and found some limited success. The process involved having a student watch a short tutorial, which I will show you soon, on how to report transcript errors and corrections. Once identifying those errors has occurred and a correction has been suggested, those pairings would be implemented by our IT team at the end of each week. And this was all for the hopes that the students who watch these lectures later in the week or in subsequent years would encounter fewer transcript errors that require correction. And we'll watch a short tutorial on the next slide.
Hello, M1s. Thank you for taking the time to watch this short tutorial for how to report errors as you watch lectures. Please reach out to me via email if you run into any issues or have questions. I contact information team. I'll walk through these 4 steps listed above, and hopefully you'll feel comfortable reporting errors as you see them. For step 1, let's play this video and pause when we hear and see the error.
Okay, shifting gears. So that's alkaptonuria.
Okay, so this lecture said, so that's alkaptonuria. So ketonuria is actually an incorrect term that's been transcribed. You can see that the closed caption here matches the transcript below. And so we can scroll all the way down the comment section, which is following step 2, in order to report this error. So the format that is probably easiest for students as well as for HITs who will be making these corrections is to type something like alkaptonuria, not ketonuria. After you do this, follow step 3, which is to select the add comment at the time This will help kids find the error quickly and efficiently so they can make those modifications. And finally, for step 4, you can click add. Okay, once the page reloads, here's your comment, and it's as simple as that in order to report these errors. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and please reach out to me if you have any issues or questions.
Thanks for bearing with me as we move my microphone. So unfortunately, there were multiple problems that came up with this student-driven crowdsourcing method. And I actually got to interview the student who contributed to these corrections the most, and they highlighted some points I wanted to share with you. The main issue that they brought up was that this method puts the onus of correction on students, which could be a burden because when they're watching for errors, it can distract from the learning that they're trying to collect from these lectures they're watching for the first time themselves. Also, lectures simply take longer to watch when you're specifically looking for errors, rewinding, pausing, and having to type these things that I've suggested to report the errors. Furthermore, many concepts and words are new to preclinical medical students, so they may not be able to reliably identify when errors occur or what the appropriate correction should be. And potentially due to the barriers mentioned above, there was decreasing amounts of participation by students in crowdsourcing over the period spanning 3 of our 6 blocks within the curriculum. As you can see here, the average number of errors reported per lecture was 10 in block 2, 8 in block 3, and only 4 in block 4. This speaks a bit to the sustainability or lack thereof in relying on students to optimize the accuracy of lecture transcripts. Lastly, even with corrections being made by the IT team at the end of the week, these corrections only help 2 groups of students. The first are the students who are so late to watch the lectures that they're watching them after the IT team has corrected them. So for example, let's say a lecture is scheduled for viewing on a Tuesday and corrections are suggested throughout the week. The IT team implements these on Friday. Then the only students who are going to benefit from these are the ones who are watching it perhaps the following Monday and are essentially 1 week behind their lecture schedule. The second group of students who could benefit from these lectures are those who are in a subsequent year. So if these lectures have their captions corrected, and then the lectures are recycled for use the subsequent year, then all of those students could benefit from these corrections. However, it's often occurring that lecturers are asked to redo their lectures, which would make any of the corrections obsolete. An alternative is for faculty who are experts in their field in the terminology that they even use to review transcripts before lectures are released. However, this downstream intervention shifts that same pressure onto faculty instead of students, and the faculty have mentioned varying bandwidths and willingness to correct errors. Given these barriers, we have yet to pursue this as a countermeasure.
Now, let's consider upstream interventions. Given many students cited poor audio quality as a potential contributor to transcription accuracy, and improving audio equipment would be a low-cost upstream intervention that, if effective, could be rolled out relatively easily, we decided to pursue this. As luck would have it, one of the lecture blocks underwent a project wherein a local audio company came on site to do recordings with professional equipment. They even chose carpeted rooms with lower ceilings so the acoustics would be fairly good. This occurred 1 year after our original study, enabling us to compare error rates from the previous year with the same topics and the same presenters. We randomly selected 10 of the 13 lectures that met our inclusion and exclusion criteria to analyze. We were surprised to find that all of the lectures done the preceding year had transcript accuracy greater than 99%, which allowed very little room for improvement. The lectures with improved audio equipment also had greater than 99% accuracy, with most improving by a couple tenths of a percentage, but no statistically significant difference. With this perplexing result, we looked further and found that this particular block of lectures had one educator that gives a disproportionate number of talks. In the sample set, they gave 6 of the 10 talks. And unfortunately for us, this educator spoke slowly and enunciates very clearly, which we suspect is at least partially responsible for the already excellent transcription accuracy results. While there was no statistically significant difference, we still suspect that this intervention would result in higher quality transcription, but would need a study with greater power to confirm that. The final countermeasure we will discuss is our ideal future state, where the transcription company itself learns from recurrent errors and improves their product. This learning could be from logging common errors, being receptive to end-user reporting of common errors, or hiring human reviewers with medical expertise. Given that our transcription company did not live up to their promise of meeting the industry standard greater than 99% accuracy, even with our very strict definitions of what exactly constitutes an error, we attempted to pursue this countermeasure. Unfortunately, we were unable to obtain robust stakeholder support, largely given we could not clearly show that the difference in transcript accuracy correlated to hard educational outcomes. Additionally, there was no clearly superior product available on the market. In fact, our company's 2-step automated speech recognition and human transcriber review is likely superior to the products relying only on automated speech recognition alone that the other surveyed medical schools utilized.
Medical students spend hundreds of hours watching lectures to learn new and hard material in the preclinical phase of medical school. When transcript errors occur, students may be left confused. So we're excited to be able to study and share about our current transcript accuracy rates at our school and highlight the potential negative impacts on learning. We hope this work will spur further study about transcript accuracy in medical education, as well as interest in pursuing countermeasures that can improve quality and equity in our medical schools. Here are our references. And to close, I want to thank the DREAM research team for having us, as well as the co-authors on this paper for their diligent work and helping me see this through. The HITS team, or our IT team, who helped do all of these caption corrections, were critical collaborators in rectifying these errors. And the Office of Medical School Education has been encouraging, despite us highlighting these issues, increasing scrutiny to the program. Lastly, I want to thank you for your attention and attendance. Your time is precious, so we're thankful you chose to spend this hour with us. Lastly, Dr. Grondin and I would love to take your questions and hear your thoughts at this time.
Wonderful. That was so interesting, and I knew it would be great, and it was absolutely. The amount of work you did is just incredible and very impressive. And I love Stephanie Taylor. So I don't think I noticed that when I was reading the paper. We have a couple of questions, and I want to invite people to jump in and ask questions. If you'd like to unmic and ask your questions as well, you're welcome to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.